there's two ways to organize a society. You only have two choices. This would be for a city, a state, a country. It does not matter. You have two choices. We can have voters who tell the government what to do. In America, we say, we the people, we the people. We tell the government what to do. This is called democracy. The other choice is you can have the government telling the people what to do. We call that dictatorship. Okay? You only have two choices. So which do you prefer between these two choices? Right. Right. So everybody wants the voters to tell the government what to do. Now, we do not tell the government every day what to do, but every election we vote for somebody, and that person or party theoretically does what we want, or we will not vote for them next time. So what is Israel? Is Israel a country where the voters tell the government what to do? Or is Israel a country where the government tells the voters what to do? So is Israel a democracy or a dictatorship? Right. Okay, so the answer is Israel is both. Israel is both a democracy and a dictatorship. So let me explain. In a government, we have three branches. We have the prime minister, or in America we call the president. We call that the executive branch. We have a Knesset. In America we call it the Congress. We call that the legislature. And we have a Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court is here. The Supreme Court is part of the government, and they tell the voters what to think. So the Supreme Court is a dictatorship. Now here would be the Prime Minister in the Knesset, where the voters tell the Prime Minister in the Knesset what to do. This is a democracy. So Israel is both a democracy and a dictatorship at the same time. But it's not possible to be a democracy and dictatorship at the same time. You're either one or the other. So the Supreme Court is trying to take control over the government and the voters. Netanyahu and the Knesset are trying to take control over the Supreme Court. So that's what you're fighting about. And I hope that there's a compromise that will make everybody happy, but it's never easy to make everybody happy in a compromise. So what's needed in Israel is for the voters and what's needed is for the voters and their representatives Thank you. So, to give you some help, there's two models to look at to fix this mess. One is the United States Constitution, and one is the Torah. Now, in the United States Constitution, the president picks the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court does not pick itself. So, secondly, in America, the president, the executive, the legislature, and the Supreme Court are all equal, or as we say, co-equal. So Israel should look at America and try to make the three branches co-equal. Now let's go to the Torah. That's another way to look at this mess. In the Torah, there's a famous parasha called Jethro. And what advice did Yitro have for Moshe Rabbeinu? Now, to refresh your memory, Yitro said to Moshe, you pick the judges. He did not say to Moshe Rabbeinu, you form a committee of judges and let them pick the next judge. So from the Torah, the guidance was the prime minister. At that time, Moshe was the equivalent of the prime minister. The advice was you pick the court members. Number two, pick court members who are honest. And number three, have the judges below make most of the decisions and have Moshe Rabbeinu, who was the Supreme Court at that time, have him make only the major decisions. So the irony, this is the last point I will mention to you, the irony is the American Constitution is loyal to the Torah. In Israel, the Supreme Court is not loyal to the Torah. Now, Israel's an 80% Jewish country, and America is a 90% Christian country. So one obvious question is, why did a 90% Christian country listen to the Torah and an 80% Jewish country ignore the Torah? It's very difficult to explain why that would be the case. But Israel has to come back to the Torah, come back to realizing that the three branches are equal or co-equal, not above or below each other. So the government must explain that to the people better than it's doing today. Now let me just conclude with a final point. This half of the page is loyal to the Torah. This half of the page ignores the Torah. So that's another fight that you have. Do people of Israel and the government believe in the Torah or not believe in the Torah? So that's why the secular part of the country believes that this is normal. And the religious part of the country thinks that this is normal. This half is normal. So that's another fight that's going on within the country. And I do not like civil wars. Jewish history is full of Jews fighting Jews. And whenever Jews fight Jews, we all lose. So I do not like this fight, and I want this fight to end. But I want the voters and the government to win, and I want the Supreme Court to lose. So I will stop here, and thank you for your time. It's great to see all of you today.
Also, in the time of the Bible, we also had kings and queens. Like, how does it make sense that that according to the Torah, democracy and not dictatorship, if we had dictatorship?
So in biblical times,
this would be the model. You would have the government, the king, I call it the government, and they did not call them voters, but just the people who lived in the city or in the country. This was the model until Moshe Rabbeinu. So with Jews, they did not use these words in the Torah, but in effect, what Moshe Rabbeinu did is move the right part of the page to the left. So Moshe Rabbeinu and the Jewish people was not an official democracy like with elections every 4 years or whenever. But as you remember, every time Moshe wanted to do something, everyone complained. So the complaints would be the equivalent of an election. Not that they elected Moshe, but their voices were heard by Moshe. So that I would call the Torah, after receiving the Torah, was the first democracy. Not exactly what we have today, but call it the first time that the king, Moshe, would listen to the people and act according to the will of the people. So,
So you're saying that the kings who came afterwards also were listening to the people. He asked about the kings who came afterwards.
yes, so in the Jewish model, under Moshe Rabbeinu, they moved from here to here. Okay. Now, throughout Jewish history, if you look at the book of Kings, there was a good king and then a bad king, a good king and a bad king. So the bad king would be here, and the good king would be here. And every generation or two, it would switch. So the point I'm getting to is the conflict that we have now, it has been going on since biblical times. It's a very old conflict. And I always want the people to win, and I always want the government to lose. Or another way of saying it, I want the Torah to win, and I want the pagans to lose. It's also a fight between pagans and Jews, or Christians. People who believe in God, people who do not believe in God. So this conflict has been going on. I call this World War III. World War III. It's actually World War I. And it began with the golden calf about 3,350 years ago, when the golden calf insurrectionists were looking at early democracy, and they made the decision that they wanted to move back to paganism. And they did not succeed because Moshe Rabbeinu called for help. The Levites came, and Moshe ordered the Levites to kill the pagans, and 3,000 dead people later, it was the end of the insurrectionists. But today, we do not have Moshe Rabbeinu. We have Levites, but the Levites do not have swords. And if the Levites killed 3,000 people, they'd be in jail. So this is what happened in biblical times. I'm not saying that this is for today's time. But what I'm saying is World War III is actually World War I. We've been fighting with the golden calf every generation, just like the Amalekites. And nothing has changed since biblical times. So we have to win generation after generation after generation against the pagans versus the Torah. By the way, you also could say belief in God, belief in sovereignty, and no belief in God, no belief in sovereignty. But this battle is a long, long battle, and will be going on for an ever and ever. But we have to win it every generation. Every generation has to fight for the victory of democracy or freedom against tyranny or dictatorship.